Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to discuss about the pelvic diaphragm. So the pelvic diaphragm it consists of muscles and fasciae of the pelvis. So muscles arising within the pelvis, they form two groups. One group is piriformis and obturator internus. These two muscles, although they form the part of the pelvis walls, they are considered primarily muscles of the lower limb. And another group is levator ani and coccygeus. These form the pelvic diaphragm and delineate the lower limit of the true pelvis. So, and also the fascia investing the muscles are continuous with the pelvic fascia above, perineal fascia below, and obturator fascia, that is the fascia covering the obturator internus muscle laterally. So we'll see now mainly the levator ani and coccygeus muscle, because these two are forming the pelvic diaphragm, and also we'll discuss a little bit about the fascia of the pelvic diaphragm. Right, so in this image we can see this is the pelvic diaphragm. So it is a gutter shaped thin sheet of muscular partition. So you can see that this is sloping towards the medial side. These are the muscles forming the pelvic diaphragm. So it is a gutter shaped thin sheet of muscular partition which is slung like a hammock around the midline pelvic effluence. So these are the midline pelvic effluence, the urogenital hiatus, which transmits the urethra and the vagina in females, and then this is the rectal hiatus, where the anorectal junction passes through this. So these are midline pelvic effluents, urethra, vagina and the anal canal. And separates the pelvic cavity. This is the pelvic cavity from the perineum. Perineum, which is discussed in the earlier classes, you all know. So this pelvic diaphragm separates the pelvic cavity from the perineum. So parts of the pelvic diaphragm, it consists of two muscles on each side, levator ani and coccygeus. And morphologically, these levator ani and coccygeus are single muscle, single entity, but we divide them into three parts from before backwards based on their attachments: pubococcygeus, iliococcygeus and ischiococcygeus. And two fasciae. This is the levator ani muscle here, right? And this green line what you are seeing above and below the levator ani, these two are the fascia of the pelvic diaphragm, superior and inferior fascia of the pelvic diaphragm. So these are the parts. We are going to discuss them in detail in the next slides. So this levator ani muscle, it consists of two parts, iliococcygeus and pubococcygeus. Ischiococcygeus forms the part of coccygeus. Both are one and the same. Coccygeus or ischiococcygeus is one and the same. So this levator ani is a broad muscular sheet of variable thickness. So here, so this one is the levator ani muscle. Okay, levator ani muscle. This one here. This one is the pubococcygeus part, and this is the iliococcygeus part, and this is ischiococcygeus part. Ischiococcygeus is also called as coccygeus muscle. So this levator ani, it is a broad sheet of muscle, and the thickness varies, so that it has variable thickness and attached to the internal surface of the true pelvis. Okay, so this is attached to the internal surface of the true pelvis and forms a large portion of the pelvic floor. So this levator ani forms the large portion of the pelvic floor, and the muscle is subdivided into named portions according to their attachments and the pelvic viscera to which they are related. So according to its attachments, like pubis to the coccyx, so pubococcygeus, ilium to the coccyx, so ischio-coccygeus, and then ischium to the coccyx, so ischio-coccygeus. So that is based on the attachments. And based on their relation with the pelvic viscera, this pubococcygeus is again divided as puborectalis, pubovaginalis, based on the organ which it is related to. So that we will see in detail in the further slides. And these parts, all the parts that I have mentioned now, they are often referred to as separate muscles, but the boundaries between each part can be easily distinguished and they perform many similar physiological functions. So these parts, what we have named like pubovaginalis, this is called pubovaginalis, the fibers from pubis to the vagina related to vagina, so pubovaginalis. Then these fibers puborectalis, right? So these fibers can be easily distinguished from each other. And levator ani arises from the each side of walls of the pelvis. So here we can see sides of the walls of the pelvis. So these are the, this is the pubis, this is the ilium here, right? So it is attached to the sides of the walls of the pelvis. And levator ani arises from each side of walls of the pelvis, and fibers from ischio-coccygeus attached to the sacrum and coccyx, but the remaining parts of the muscle converge in the midline. So fibers of this ischio-coccygeus, so they are attached to sacrum and coccyx, whereas the rest of the fibers that is this iliococcygeus, pubococcygeus, these other fibers, they are converged into the midline. And this midline attachment, they form a raphe posterior to the anorectal junction. This is the anorectal junction, right? Posterior to the anorectal junction, all these fibers which are converged towards the midline, they form an anococcygeal raphe or anococcygeal ligament. Okay, so iliococcygeus and pubococcygeus often are separated by a gap here. Okay, and both parts arise in continuity from the pelvic surface of body of the pubis. This is the symphysis pubis and this is the pubis, body of the pubis. So they arise from the body of the pubis, and also this is called as the tendinous arch or white line of the pelvic fascia, and so they arise from this also. And pelvic surface of the ischial spine here part, this is the ischial spine here. So iliococcygeus and pubococcygeus, so this is pubococcygeus and this is iliococcygeus. So they are arising from the body of the pubis, from the tendinous arch or white line of the pelvic fascia, and some fibers are arising from the ischial spine also. Okay, so that is the origin of the iliococcygeus and pubococcygeus. We'll see each one in detail now. So iliococcygeus, it arises from the posterior half of the white line from the and also from the ischial spine. So this is the white line, right? So this complete thing is the white line. So from the posterior half of this white line, it is taking origin, iliococcygeus, and also some fibers are arising from the ischial spine here. Okay, and the fibers pass downwards, backwards, see, downwards and backwards and medially, and are inserted into the sides of the lower two pieces of coccyx. So here coccyx is there. So these are converging medially and they are attached to the lower two pieces of the coccyx and into the anococcygeal raphe. This white line what you are seeing in the midline is nothing but the anococcygeal raphe. So the fibers of the iliococcygeus, they are running downwards, backwards and medially, and attach it to lower two pieces of the coccyx, also to the anococcygeal raphe here. So this anococcygeal raphe extends from the anorectal junction. This is the cut open part of the anorectal junction. So this anococcygeal raphe is extending from the anorectal junction to the coccyx. That's why it is called as anococcygeal raphe or the ligament. Okay. So extends from the anorectal junction to the tip of the coccyx. This one. So this anococcygeal raphe is also known as post-anal plate because this is behind the anus, right? So it is also called as post-anal plate. It is what is it? It is a layered musculofibrous tissue and comprises from above downwards of what all included in this anococcygeal raphe is there is presacral fascia and tendinous plate of pubococcygeus and also muscular raphe of iliococcygeus and superficial fibers of sphincter ani externus. So in this anococcygeal raphe, which is musculofibrous tissue, that means it has got both muscle fibers and fibrous tissue, muscle fibers and also the connective tissue fibers are there. So what fascia and muscles are forming in the sense? One is presacral fascia, then also tendinous plate of pubococcygeus. This is pubococcygeus. It forms a tendinous plate here. So that also is included in anococcygeal raphe. And then muscle fibers of the iliococcygeus. Okay, and superficial fibers of sphincter ani externus. Here the anal sphincter is there below. So that sphincter also has got the muscle fibers, circular muscle fibers. So those muscle fibers, superficial fibers of the sphincter ani externus also are included in this anococcygeal raphe, right? So it consists of 4 parts. The origin of the iliococcygeus is from the posterior half of the white line, and also some fibers take origin from the ischial spine. Then they are converged medially to get attached to the lower two pieces of coccyx, also into the anococcygeal raphe. And what are the parts of this anococcygeal raphe? What structures are forming this anococcygeal raphe? It is important. You have to make a note of it. Okay. So here in this image, this is the anococcygeal raphe. So it has got both muscle fibers and also connective tissue fibers here. Then pubococcygeus. So origin of the pubococcygeus is it arises from the anterior half of white line. So this is the white line, right? So this is the posterior half which is giving origin to the iliococcygeus, which we have already seen. And this one is the anterior half of the white line which is giving origin to the pubococcygeus. This is the pubococcygeus muscle. And so it is arising from the anterior half of the white line and also from the body of the pubis. This area is the body of the pubis. So few of the fibers are taking origin from the body of the pubis and few are taking origin from the anterior half of the white line or tendinous arch. White line of pelvic fascia, also called as tendinous arch. So from the anterior half, pubococcygeus is taking origin. Then where is it getting inserted? So this pubococcygeus, I told you, it is divided into certain parts based on the viscera it is related to. So here pubococcygeus proper, these are the most posterior fibers. So these are the most posterior fibers, right? So these most posterior fibers overlap the pelvic surface of iliococcygeus. So this is iliococcygeus. These fibers are overlapping the iliococcygeus and are inserted into the anococcygeal raphe. This is anococcygeal raphe and also the tip of coccyx here. Okay, tip of coccyx and anococcygeal raphe. So this part is the Pubococcygeus proper, which is nothing but the posterior most fibers of the pubococcygeus. Then other one is puborectalis, and these fibers, they wind round the posterior aspect. So this one here, you can see these fibers, they are winding round the posterior aspect of the rectum, okay, or anorectal junction, and are continuous with the similar fibers or of opposite side, this one, forming a U-shaped loop known as the puborectal sling. So here there is no raphe, that point you have to remember. The muscle fibers itself, they are forming a U-shaped loop around the posterior aspect of the anorectal junction. So this U-shaped loop is called as puborectal sling. Okay, so that is the puborectalis part of the pubococcygeus. Then the puborectalis lies at a lower level than the pubococcygeus proper and blends with the posterior fibers of deep part of the sphincter ani externus muscle. So the puborectal sling lies below the anococcygeal raphe and forms a component of anorectal ring to maintain the continence of the feces. Okay, here. So if we just see in the anatomical position, this puborectal sling, it lies little on the lower level, and it supports the external anal sphincter to maintain the continence of the feces. Then puboanalis is one more part. So some fibers are inserted in the wall of the anal canal between sphincter ani internus and externus muscles. So few of these fibers of the pubococcygeus in this area, they get inserted between sphincter ani externus and internus muscles. So that forms the puboanalis muscle or puboanalis part of the pubococcygeus muscle. And these fibers, puboanalis fibers, they after getting attached, they blend with the longitudinal muscle of the rectum, longitudinal muscle fibers of the rectum. Then another one is pubovesicalis or pubovaginalis. These are most anterior fibers of the pubococcygeus. So if we just see, these are the most anterior fibers of the pubococcygeus. So these are surrounding the urethra here, and in females there is a vagina here. So pubovesicalis or pubovaginalis, these are the most anterior fibers of the pubococcygeus, pass by the side of the prostate in male or vagina in the female, and are inserted into the perineal body. So here actually in between the anorectal junction and the vaginal opening, here we will see the perineal body. So there these pubovesicalis fibers will get inserted. So what is this perineal body? The perineal body, it is also called as the central tendon. So this portion, it is the central point of the perineum and also called as central tendon, and it is a pyramidal shaped fibromuscular node. Okay, pyramidal shaped fibromuscular node intervening between the anal canal, this is the anal canal, and this is the urogenital apparatus. So in between the urogenital apparatus and the anal canal, this area is the perineal body here. Okay, and it receives the perineal muscles in three stratum, right? In three layers it gets the insertion or attachment of the perineal muscles. On the deeper aspect you will see the levator ani muscle. This is the levator ani on both the sides. So this on the deeper side, if you observe the image, it is going on the deeper side. Okay, so levator ani on the deeper stratum. Then on the intermediate stratum, intermediate stratum. It receives the muscles of the muscle of deep perineal pouch as well as the deep part of the external anal sphincter. Now this one is the anal opening and this one is the external anal sphincter. The circular muscles what you are seeing, fibers, circular muscle fibers, they are nothing but the sphincter. So this external anal sphincter has got superficial layer of muscles and deep layer of muscles. So this is the deep layer of the external anal sphincter. So that inserts into the perineal body in its intermediate stratum. Okay. And superficial stratum, so this one is all the superficial stratum. In that we will see the attachment of bulbospongiosus muscle. This is bulbospongiosus muscle. Then transversus perineae superficialis muscle here, and this is the superficial fibers of the external anal sphincter, right? So these are all going to get attached or inserted into this perineal body. So 3 layers: deeper levator ani, intermediate muscle of deep perineal pouch as well as the deep fibers of the external anal sphincter. And on its superficial aspect or superficial stratum, we'll see the bulbospongiosus, transversus perineae superficialis, okay, or superficial transverse perineal muscle, and superficial fibers of the external anal sphincter. So this is about the perineal body. Most of the times this perineal body is asked as a short note question, wherein you have to write its location, what is it, and what are the muscles inserted into it. Then coming to the nerve supply, the posterior part of the levator ani. So here if we see, this is the posterior part of the levator ani muscle, this one here. So it is supplied by the S4, fourth sacral nerve, on its pelvic surface, okay, on its pelvic surface, posterior fibers. Then anterior fibers or anterior part of the levator ani is supplied by S2 and S3 through its through the perineal nerve from its perineal surface. So that difference you should understand. So posterior fibers from fourth sacral nerve from its pelvic surface, anterior part of the levator ani by second and third sacral nerves through the perineal nerve from its perineal surface. Then coming to the coccygeus. So coccygeus, it is also known as ischio-coccygeus. This portion is the ischio-coccygeus muscle, right? So it is the posterior part, and it is pyramidal in shape or triangular in shape, triangular in shape, situated behind the levator ani. So this one is the levator ani part, right? Pubococcygeus and iliococcygeus part of the levator ani, these two, and this one is the ischio-coccygeus. And most of the fibers of this ischio-coccygeus, posterior fibers, they degenerate to form the sacrospinous ligament, right? Between the ischial spine and the sacrum, there is sacrospinous ligament, if you remember. Sacrotuberous and sacrospinous ligaments, while doing the gluteal region dissection in lower limb, you might have seen this. So that sacrospinous ligament is nothing but the degenerated posterior fibers of the ischio-coccygeus muscle, okay. And now it is triangular in shape, so this portion is the apex and this is the base. So the apex is the origin point. It takes origin from the ischial spine as well as from the sacrospinous ligament here, okay. And base, this is inserted into the sides of the upper two pieces of coccyx and last piece of the sacrum. This bone is the sacrum, right? So the last piece of the sacrum and upper two pieces of the coccyx. So that is the insertion of the ischio-coccygeus muscle. And the nerve supply is by 4th and 5th sacral nerves. So this ischio-coccygeus is supplied by 4th and 5th sacral nerves. There are some peculiarities of the muscles of pelvic diaphragm. So this gutter shaped diaphragm, so this complete thing is the diaphragm. So it is like a bowl kind of thing. So you can see that medially the fibers are going downwards and medially, right? So giving it a gutter like appearance. So it slopes downwards and forwards and towards the anterior part of the pelvic outlet, all the fibers, okay. And the anterior fibers of the levator ani overlap the pelvic surface of posterior fibers of the anococcygeal raphe. This is the anococcygeal raphe. So these anterior fibers overlap the pelvic surface of the anococcygeal raphe. Fibers, posterior fibers of at the anococcygeal raphe, right? And most of the fibers of ischiococcygeus and some part of the iliococcygeus degenerate. So and you can observe that they are not large when you compare with this pubococcygeus part, right? So and also the fibers are degenerating. So the main brunt of supporting the pelvic viscera, the rectum, vagina and the urethra here, so it is all the support is provided by this pubococcygeal part here, okay. Because some fibers of iliococcygeus and posterior fibers of the ischiococcygeus are degenerated, and ischiococcygeus, the degenerated fibers are forming the sacrospinous ligament, right? So these are the peculiarities of the pelvic diaphragm, muscles of pelvic diaphragm. Then openings of the pelvic diaphragm, the openings are hiatus urogenitalis. So this one is the hiatus urogenitalis and this is the hiatus rectalis. So where is this hiatus urogenitalis present? In on two sides. These are the anterior fibers of the levator ani, right? So in between the two anterior fibers you are seeing this triangular gap, and the gap is closed from below by the urogenital diaphragm. And what does this transmit? This is the female pelvis here. So the female pelvis here, it is transmitting the vagina and the urethra here, okay. Behind the urethra, this is the vaginal opening. So the hiatus urogenitalis transmits the vagina and the urethra in the females, right? And hiatus rectalis is this one. So this is round aperture present between the perineal body here and anococcygeal raphe behind, right? Perineal body and anococcygeal raphe. In between them we are seeing this rounded aperture, that is the hiatus rectalis. These are the normal openings that are present. One abnormal opening is called as hiatus of Schwalbe. This gap what you are seeing, this is the hiatus of Schwalbe, which is an abnormal opening, and this occurs when the levator ani fails to arise from the obturator fascia, okay. Here from the obturator fascia, when the few fibers which take origin from the obturator fascia, if they fail to arise, there leaves a gap, and this gap is known as hiatus of Schwalbe. And through this gap the pelvic viscera may herniate into the corresponding ischiorectal fossa, okay. In the corresponding ischiorectal fossa you may see the herniation of the pelvic viscera when this hiatus of Schwalbe is present. So where is this gap present? The gap is between the obturator fascia and the tendinous arch of the pelvic fascia. So this is the tendinous arch of the pelvic fascia, and obturator fascia is not seen in this image clearly. So between them this gap is the hiatus of Schwalbe. Then the functions of the pelvic diaphragm. The pelvic diaphragm, remember this is asked as an essay question. So therein you need to add these functions of the pelvic diaphragm along with everything that we have discussed in the earlier slides. That is the parts, the muscles and the fascia, then origin and insertion of supply of all the muscles, and then include these functions. So main function, one important function is it supports the pelvic viscera and counteracts the downward thrust of the diaphragm during increased intra-abdominal pressure. So like during defecation, micturition, sneezing, in all these conditions the intra-abdominal pressure is increased. So in those the pelvic viscera are supported especially the pubococcygeal part of the levator ani. It supports the pelvic viscera and counteracts the downward thrust of the diaphragm. So support of the pelvic viscera is one important function. Then in the males, the anterior fibers of levator ani elevate the prostate gland, right? So hence it is also called as the levator prostate. The anterior fibers mainly forming the pubococcygeus part here again. Then in females, anterior fibers constrict the vagina and act as sphincter vaginae. So it prevents the downward displacement of the uterus through the vaginal canal. Okay, so this again, the anterior fibers in females, they are forming the sphincter vagina. So it will keep the vagina constricted and it supports the uterus. If you remember the supports of the uterus class, therein this point might have been discussed. So the anterior fibers will form the sphincter vaginae. And then coccygeus muscle pulls the coccyx forwards after it is displaced backwards during defecation and in parturition to widen the urogenital hiatus, and in defecation to widen the hiatus rectalis. The coccygeus muscle pulls the coccyx backwards, and then the ischio-coccygeus will help again to keep it or place back it in its normal position after the defecation and parturition are completed. So that is one important function. Then during defecation, puborectal sling relaxes and rectum and anal canal form a straight tube, right? So at the same time, puboanal fibers elevate the anus. So here these fibers are helping in the process of defecation, relaxing the rectum and anal canal. So that is one more important function. Then in parturition, the puborectal sling upon which the fetal head resets allows forward rotation of the head into the lower part of the birth canal. So this forward rotation of the head is an important event during the normal delivery of the fetus, and in this process the puborectal sling is going to help. Then in micturition, the pubococcygeae relax as intra-abdominal pressure rises and the bladder neck descends. So this descent of the bladder neck stimulates the contraction of the detrusor muscle of the urinary bladder and helps to void the urine. So all the pelvic viscera to carry on their normal functions, this pelvic diaphragm is aiding it, helping it, supporting it in all the ways. So these are the functions of pelvic diaphragm. One important clinical aspect related to this is the perineal body may be torn in female during parturition. So this is the normal alignment. This is the urogenital hiatus in the females, right? So perineal body is where it is present. It is present in between the urogenital apparatus and the anorectal junction, right? So during parturition, during delivery of the fetus, what happens is that urogenital hiatus is widened and the levator ani muscle, it is stretched. Normally that stretching is there to some extent, and when the delivery is over, when the fetus comes out through the vaginal canal, then they are contracting back to their original shape and structure. But in a contracted pelvis, or when the head of the fetus is big, in those conditions, what happens is there more stress is laid upon this pelvic diaphragm. The stretching of the muscles will be too much, so to an extent that the perineal body may be sometimes torn, right? So if that happens, then and the repair is done, the what are muscle fibers are torn, that is repaired back. If that repair is not done properly, the hiatus urogenitalis becomes wider. So this opening becomes wider here when the levator ani contracts, right? So through that gap, if the wider urogenital hiatus, the female pelvic viscera, especially this uterus, may displace downwards. So like in this image, it may displace downwards, producing prolapse of the uterus. Okay, so that means the sphincter vaginae effect, which is given by the pubococcygeus and all, because the pubococcygeus is related to the perineal body, so that perineal body is torn and that support is lost, so that sphincteric action is also lost, and that results in this prolapse of the uterus. Okay. So I told you I'll add a few points on the fascia of the pelvic diaphragm. So the fasciae are two. What are the two fasciae? Superior and inferior pelvic fascia. So here in this image, if we see, this is the levator ani muscle on both the sides, and the blue line that you are seeing is nothing but this one is the inferior fascia of the pelvic diaphragm, and this one is the superior fascia of the pelvic diaphragm. Okay, so this inferior fascia of the pelvic diaphragm is thin, covering the inferior surface, and then laterally it is continuous with the obturator fascia. Okay, and medially it forms the medial wall of the ischioanal fossa. Here if you see, this is the ischioanal fossa. Clear? So it is forming the ischioanal fossa, medial wall of the ischioanal fossa. And here lower down, if you see, it is blending with the fascia covering the external anal sphincter here, urethral anteriorly and posteriorly external anal sphincter. So this fascia, so lower down it is blending with the fascia covering the urethral and external anal sphincters. Medially it is forming it is covering the medial wall of the ischioanal fossa. Laterally it is continuous with the obturator fascia. Laterally continuous with obturator fascia. Medially it covers the medial wall of the ischioanal fossa, and lower down it blends with the fascia covering the urethra and the external anal sphincter. Then coming to the superior layer of the pelvic diaphragm, superior fascia of the pelvic diaphragm. So anteriorly it is attached to the body of the pubis. Anteriorly it is attached to the back of the body of the pubis, and laterally it crosses its superior ramus of the pubis and then blends with the obturator fascia here again laterally. Okay, and laterally obturator fascia, and also it is continuous little above into the ischial spine, or irregular line to the ischial spine. It is stretching towards the ischial spine. Then posteriorly it continues with the fascia over the piriformis and anterior sacrococcygeal ligament. Then medially the superior fascia of the pelvic diaphragm blends with the viscera, pelvic fascia covering the viscera. So this is the bladder, right? So medially the superior layer of the pelvic diaphragm, superior fascia of the pelvic diaphragm blends with the fascia covering the pelvic viscera, right? So these few points I just wanted to tell you about the fascia.